Last night the world premieres began for Jurassic World Rebirth, and that means a lot of the general public have now seen the film, including a handful of verified people who were nice enough to answer questions on the Jurassic Park subreddit about the movie. In this video we're going to examine some of the most revealing answers they gave, some big spoilers here, I have to warn you, big spoiler territory, I'm not kidding. If you care at all about spoilers, do not watch this video. I'm full on telling you to not give me any money and leave this video right now. Now personally, I don't really care about spoilers, and for those of you at home who are in the same boat as me, let's hope there's no Spinosaurs around and let's get started. Scripted joke. We're going to break this down topic by topic. Let's begin with the species list. Now there's been a lot of speculation lately about the Diabloceratops and the Carnotaurus featuring in the film because they A, each have a Funko Pop, and B, are even featured on NBC's own website recently. And remember, NBC and Universal are a conglomerate company. Now a lot of people took this as confirmation, but I hedged a little bit in my recent video, and for apparently good reason, as according to the AMA, neither dinosaur makes it into the film. I suspect these are cutscenes. I think there may be an extended edition in our future. We'll have to wait and see. There are, however, a few surprising inclusions. Dunkleosteus is apparently in the film. It's a minor role, seemingly from the very start when Zor et al. Had to Suriname to recruit Duncan Kincaid. They're at the fishing port bar sort of area that we've seen before, and apparently the fishermen will catch a Dunkleosteus. It's a shame it's not a larger role, but it is one of my absolute favourite prehistoric creatures, and it's very cool to have this gigantic extinct fish featuring in a Jurassic film, if nothing else. I'm very curious as well to see whether it's the large classic Dunkleosteus or the more recent kind of stout and squishy reconstruction. The second surprise inclusion is, and I quote, a couple of giant prehistoric salamander things. Now we don't have confirmation on what it really looks like besides being from books but way before the dinosaurs. But that suggests to me it's one of the popular prehistoric amphibians. If OP believed it was a giant salamander, then the most obvious choice is probably Coolosuchus, which looks very similar in some ways to extant salamanders, but you know, big and prehistoric. It could also be the likes of Diplodocus, but I think that distinctive head shape would make it much more obvious in that case. What role will this play in the film? We don't know yet. I think it's probably an ambient background sort of creature, but it's a cool Suchus inclusion. I'm going to check my stats after to see how many people clicked off at this point. There's a few other things we can clear up from this answer. There are no pteranodons, there were no triceratops, other than the one in the incubation chamber, assumedly, and the iguana thing that flies mentioned in this answer is the Anurognathus that we've already talked about before. And I suspect the Brontosaurus in New York is probably the Jurassic era Apatosaurus. There's something in the water from this scene where they're traversing the swamp, and OP mentions it could be an eel or titanoboa of some form. It sounds like it's only seen under the water and doesn't get much of a showcase in the film. Interestingly, they mentioned there also isn't just 4 Spinosaurs, but apparently 5? They could have miscounted. 5 is crazy. But after all, it is the hero dinosaur. Or is it? This is the big reveal of this AMA, I would say. Everything we thought we knew about the ending of this film is wrong. Flat out wrong. The D-Rex is the villain dinosaur, the Spinosaurus is the hero dinosaur. That was confirmed by toy lines, and leaks have suggested for ages that the final encounter was going to be between the D-Rex and the Spinosaurs, with the latter finally prevailing. Apparently that's all incorrect. I suspect they may have laid some false information across the way to make us think this, because that is entirely wrong, and the final dinosaur encounter doesn't exist. According to OP and verified by other people, the D-Rex actually survives the events of Jurassic World Rebirth, and after killing the villain, we're assuming that's Martin Krebs during this scene we've seen recently, will keep on thriving on the island after the film concludes. Not necessarily good news for all the prey dinosaurs on the island, but that's life, I guess. Rather than being beat back by other dinosaurs by the Spinosaurs, it sounds like the protagonists are going to use light to distract the creature. It's probably sensitive to light in some way, and they're going to do that long enough to make their escape. Perhaps the helicopter we see briefly in this clip is in fact not a rescue helicopter, but it's one of the protagonists using it to distract the Distortus Rex to help everyone else make their escape as well. I don't know about you lot, but that actually makes me really happy. All of the Jurassic World films for some reason felt they had to end on this big climactic dinosaur battle. It was becoming very overdone. Yeah, Jurassic Park did it, but The Lost World didn't do it. Jurassic Park 3 didn't do it. It doesn't need to be how we close every single Jurassic film for the rest of time. So I'm really glad they've thought about this and thought, you know, this doesn't fit tonally or whatever, or we don't feel like it fits the film, let's not force it in here. I also much prefer the D-Rex as a tragic figure rather than 100% as a sort of menacing one. So the fact it gets to survive actually makes me more excited to see the film. So it's good news for the D-Rex, but it's not good news for the Velociraptors. We've expected for a long time now their only role in the film is a brief cameo at the gas station, and that does seem to be the case, with OP confirming there's 2 raptors, assuming the male and female designs we've seen, and they both get absolutely bodied by the Mutadons in the span of about 20 seconds to never be seen again. Now this does feel a little bit like a waste of what is a beautiful looking Velociraptor design, but on the other hand I think being beholden to these quote unquote legacy dinosaurs isn't actually a good thing. Velociraptors are very cool, I love a Velociraptor, don't get me wrong, but there's no reason they have to be prominent in every single Jurassic film, just because that's how it's always been done. They probably have the most screen time of any dinosaur in the franchise, by a fairly significant margin. I would expect it to be over double any other dinosaur. The same goes for T-Rex, which of course does have a much more extended sequence. God knows we've seen most of it by now with the River Rapids sequence, but it does seem to be the Rex's only appearance in the film. It isn't in any scenes besides this one. The same also goes for the Dilophosaurus, which again is on screen for about 20 seconds. To an extent it feels like these legacy dinosaurs are included because they think we the fans expect to see them more than anything else. But that said, I don't mind a big species roster if it just helps the island feel more like a real ecological system. Not necessarily as big a spoiler this one, but it's an answer I found interesting. Several people who've seen the film have suggested they don't really know where they're going to go with a sequel unless it's to yet another island, and that the film doesn't really set up for one in any real way. Now that's not necessarily bad news of course, a self-contained story means with the passage of time the film will still stand alone on its own, and if we don't get sequels then the film again will stand alone and just exist as an entire entity. And it also logically makes sense. If all the dinosaurs around the world are dying out because they're not built for our world, and the D-Rex is now perpetually roaming the island of San Hubar, then where would you even go for the next film, other than, oh, there's yet another island where they happen to survive? It feels like the film will need an even bigger reboot in direction if we're going to carry on. Now I hope we do get sequels and stuff, because I like seeing this franchise do well, and it gets me paid, I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But I am very curious to see what happens post Rebirth now. That's going to be really interesting, I think. That's most of the big stuff, but let's bang out some smaller details. Wink. There's been a lot of excitement lately about the IMDb gore and violence description for this film, but it was worth remembering that, well, basically anyone can write these aren't official, and they actually went up before the film even premiered. From what people have said, it doesn't sound as violent as that description made it seem, but there's mention of a visibly dismembered arm, someone is losing an arm, and it sounds like it's going to push the PG-13 rating reasonably well. For example, there's a cool sounding Quetz kill that I'm quite looking forward to. I suspect that's Leclerc, as we talked about recently, and it sounds like Spinosaurus and D-Rex will rack up a few kills themselves as well. Unsurprisingly maybe, but a little unfortunately, it looks like none of the protagonists are going to die, which means of course Kincaid somehow survives his flare encounter with the D-Rex. There's a few reviews of the film out there already over on Twitter etc, but I'm always very cautious of early screenings because they're typically either from A, industry people hoping to stay in the good books, or B, superfans who queued up to get tickets and are therefore positively inclined towards the film. And at the end of the day, the reaction has been very, very positive, but it is to basically every film that gets an early screening. But OP of this thread ranks the films in the exact order that I rank the films, which is basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they've equated Rebirth, in terms of enjoyment, about equal with Jurassic Park 3, above the entire World trilogy. Of course, your personal mileage will vary a lot with this, but for me personally, and that's all I'm saying here, but for me personally, I take this as a positive sign. I would say that's basically all the important stuff covered. OP does say it's similar to JP3 in some ways, but there might be some things that still surprise people. I think despite this AMA, and thanks to OP again for doing this, I will link it in the description below if you want to check it out for yourselves, There's still some secrets left in this film, particularly in terms of how the timeline works and how it's going to be structured. It is, however, out for global release in only 2 weeks. We are literally 2 weeks away, and I will have a full review and discussion on the second itself, and I'll try to do both a spoiler and unspoilered version. My ticket is booked already. This time in 2 weeks I will actually be sat in the cinema, so I'm looking forward to that. Although, Universal, if you're watching this, can I get a ticket next time, maybe? Come on, we'll be best buddies, that'd be nice. Anyways, that's about it from me. Thank you so much for joining me. Of course, we'll keep on the Rebirth news in the lead up to the film. We'll have some theories and speculation when the film is out. I'm sure we'll have lots of things to discuss, but we are very much in the end times now, and I'm going to have to find other sources of content. Thanks for joining me. Cheers much love as always. Bye-bye.